So thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Laura, for this introduction and for inviting me to this session. Laura asked me to present some possibility of numerical methods applied in Total Group. So as you will see, we have a lot of development in mathematics and numerical methods. So I will try first to understand why we need such research in Total. And after that, I will select some applications. And at the end, I will give you a large overview of what it is possible to do. And during this session of SEMRAX, we presented one project with Laura and Pascal and Hussam on communication avoiding algorithm. But we also could present several projects, as you will see in the presentation. So my talk is dedicated to multiple applications of HPC and numerical methods. And why understanding that we need this kind of development in Total. Total is not only an oil and gas company, but a real energy company. We want to provide effectively energy all over the world. First for detecting by seismic application, for detecting where are located the reservoir. And secondly, when we detect the reservoir, how is it possible to extract? And how is it possible to produce oil and gas? But we are also dedicated to transform this crude oil in a very useful product like gasoline and diesel or polymers and a lot of applications, because you know that polymers now is quite everywhere in the world, but also to define some different compounds with polymers, blending of polymers, compounds with mineral compounds and polymers compounds. So all these things are dedicated to the petrochemicals department of Total. But we are also involved in bioenergy, not for something dedicated to food, but only for linear to something application. So we are detecting some biofuels, for example, with our company Ameris in US. We produce effectively biofuel for jet. And the last one, we are detecting now a new branch in Total dedicated only to new energy and specifically to electricity. We want to be one of the leaders of electricity provider. We bought, you know, certainly SunPower, and SunPower is the second provider of photovoltaic cells in the world. And very recently, we bought Saft. That means we have now electricity productivity and also storage. So our strategy is to be an electricity provider and integrator, and at the end to have a very nice smart energy distributor in cities or distributed in countries, but generally much more dedicated to smart energy and smart grid in cities. Sorry. For achieving this goal, effectively, we need a very strong R&D. The reason why is the following. You know that Total is an international oil company, but we have quite no oil in France. So that means we are obliged to work outside abroad. That means we are no owner of our resources. The owner of the resources is a country which are located. So we have to work with what we call the NOC, National Oil Company. And when a country discover or want to discover a reservoir, they ask to international company to help them. So there is some activities, and they choose some of them. You understand that if we are not aware or we are not clear of at least some points, we will never choose by the NOC company. So the R&D program is really, the strategy is to be on the top of the international company, to be chosen by national oil company to effectively extract oil or detect and extract oil in several countries. For the moment, we are located in 130 countries in the world, and we are the number 4th of international company in the world. For that, we need what? We need a lot of effectively activity in IT technology, of course. We need communication, we need to have some presentation, of course. We need to be very clever in material science, in biotechnology, nanotechnology, of course, on analytical techniques, aware on new R&D for photovoltaic cells or new energy in biomass. And this is more recently, we are to be detected in energy efficiency. And energy efficiency is very close to CO2 capture and CO2 sequestration. So we are now a very large effort, and one of the projects we will have from the end of this year and beginning of next year is a real, very large transverse program on CO2 for capture, sequestration, and use also of CO2. And this program is roughly 60 million euros by year. So it's a very large effort only for detecting energy efficiency and CO2 applications. And of course, one of the major technology we have to use is numerical simulation and advanced computing. And you will understand why. Our field is the underground, generally. So, and nobody has a real experiment action in the underground. We have some knowledge about what could be, what happened several million years ago. We have some notion of geology, but we have no real experiments. We have only some cores, and cores are roughly something like that. It's 10 centimeter diameter and 1 meter of length. That's, we could work on this experimental by all analytics we want, but it's only a very, very, very small part. So for detecting and for providing extraction of oil, we need numerical simulation. Everything is simulated in oil and gas, everything. And sometimes we are lucky to validate some approach, but everything is estimated. So we need effectively numerical simulation with advanced computing for that, and we're involved on this activity because we think that it's a real solution for the future. So we skip rapidly on this slide, but for, I know, because you know that effectively, why numerical simulation? First is for understanding, because we don't know exactly the underground, so we need to understand what happened exactly in the Earth, in the physics, in the life science, and also for industrial challenging like multi-fluid flows, turbulent combustion, something like that. The second activity of numerical simulation is dedicated to consumption and optimization. When we detect something, we need to have an optimal control of our field. So we need to have a conception of material structure, as we did and we continue to do with Hutchinson, for example, for new material design and process engineering, of course. So, and just this slide is only for this part. When you want to go in a very efficient numerical simulation, especially if you are using HPC and large HPC, you need to work not only. You need to work together with a multidisciplinary team, combining physics, combining chemical, because, for example, the sequestration of CO2 is very chemical things, because we need to have some hypercritical activity for CO2. We need to share algorithms, so we need numerical, physics, chemical, IT, and computing science. So all these competencies must not try, but must work together to have an efficient code. Oh, sorry. So, what are the real domain of activity of HPC and numerical in Total? You know, I will present some part. I will present here the seismics application, what we call the depth imaging of the underground, using the large part of the HPC. Pascal Hénon yesterday presented some activities in reservoir modeling, so I will skip this part from my presentation. After we should have effectively numerical simulation for process engineering, for process modeling. And you know this, for example, this industrial process is very interesting because it's something important due to the upscaling laws. This, for example, this unit is roughly 30 meters of height and for 4 meters of diameter. So we need, in this process, we have some flows at 15 meters by second, and with some temperature around 700 degrees, with a lot of chemical part inside. So modeling this process is very difficult, and need effectively HPC for that. So François-Xavier knows very well this part, the modeling for activities of mechanical structure. And this part is dedicated also to molecular simulation. We do a lot, very lot of molecular simulation in Total. Application of molecular simulation, because I don't want to speak more during this talk. So mainly the molecular simulation is dedicated to thermodynamics, understanding of oil, kerosene, and effectively for asphaltene. So we have a lot of development for understand what is the thermodynamics of some parts of the oil compounds. The second is dedicated to define. No, it's not working. No, it's not working. So define new catalyst. New catalyst for process, for define new compounds, for elastomeric compounds, and blending of polymers, largely the defining of new polymers and biotechnologies. So the HPC is not only for computing fast. I want to say we don't care to computing fast, in fact. We want to understand more. So that's the use of HPC for us, is to develop more accurate physical modeling. And by HPC, we could effectively improve complex physical modeling. The second thing is to effectively develop performing numerical schema. And we develop, for example, some schema for reservoir modeling with Roland Masson in this room, and some parts with other university. And the last point used, but I do not effectively present also this activity today, is dedicated to UQ. We need, because we have a lot of uncertainties, you know, we don't know exactly the underground, we don't know the flows, we don't know the saturation of our products, the composition of our product. So we have a lot of uncertainties. And at the end also, the equation we are using is not, these are stochastic equations because they are not really, it's only an estimation of the reality, it's not the real equations. Darcy is an approximation, it's not a real equation. So we have a lot, at each stage, we have a lot of statistical, stochastics parameter or stochastic equations. So HPC allows us to have a more robust optimization. This is the strategy and the volunteers of Total in terms of HPC. This curve represents the activity of a supercomputer in the world, and this curve there is representing the top one in the world of HPC. Actually, for a long time now, for the last 3 years, the top one is a Chinese computer. So this curve, you see, is a roughly linear increment, but at the end now we saw some saturation. And this curve in red here is a total upgrade of the supercomputer. In 2008, we have a 100 teraflop machine, 0.1 petaflop. In 2013, we invested in a 2.3 petaflopic machine, and we have an upgrade last year, and the beginning of this year, up to 7 petaflopic machine. And the next step will be certainly 30 petaflop. After that, we don't know exactly if our code could run correctly in this machine. So we want to develop at the same time new technology in terms of architecture, but at the same time, we have to think if is it necessary or not to change completely our algorithm, our code, due to the change of the architecture. What we say that if we are going more than 100 petaflop, we know that our code will be only efficiency of 1% of this supercomputer. So my boss said, okay, with 1% you could go away. But if you increase the efficiency of your code, perhaps we will see. But that's a challenge. And you are there for that. In fact, we want to work with Laura, with a lot of people everywhere here, to increase the efficiency of our code, of all modeling code, in the next future. Not now, because now I think we are correct. We are at 18% of efficiency. It's correct for this machine. But for the future. So if you want to have some challenge, come to me. The challenge is to go up there with efficient algorithm. So we see that the strategy is there. We have the same power than the first in the world only 2 years after. And the classical for the top 500 is 6 years. So that means we are a real volunteer application to HPC. If you take a look, all the oil companies are roughly around 1 petaflop. Everybody in the world for oil company have 1 petaflop machine, and some have several machines of 1 petaflop. For example, ENI have 5 petaflopic machines from 2 years now. So we are effectively quite all at the same level. But we want to be just in advance of 1 or 2 years versus the others. And the classical energy, aeronautics, and automotive company are roughly there. It's between 500 teraflops to 1 petaflop. CEA is 1 petaflop, Airbus is 1 petaflop. So everybody wants to have some simulation in this area. So this is the picture of the most important. This is the first in the world, in China. This is Oak Ridge, the second in the world. This is the third in the world, and this is Pangaea. So now I just want to, why we need numerical application. I just want to present some numerical methods used for different applications. So if I have time, I will present application of seismics, of multi-fluids and multi-scale reactors, of mechanical materials, some words in terms of mesh, meshless, and isogeometry, and the last one for in-situ data processing. That's the next future of HPC. Because in the next future, it's impossible to split computing and data. So what is the applications in terms of seismics? So in terms of seismic, we could have some seismic campaigns with acquisition of geological data. We are using model velocity because you know that the sound speed in the underground is constant in one layer. That's the change layer and layer. And what is interesting is to detect what we call the salt dome, because in the salt, the sound speed is roughly 5,000 meters by second. And in classical rocks is something around 500 only. So there's a large difference between salt and rocks. So if we are detecting salt, we will see why we could have a chance to detect oil reservoir. So we have a combined velocity and the snapshot for providing this kind of seismic blocks. I don't know if you see something on this, but especially see everything on this curve. And at the end, we could produce some studies of a geological study like that. So I just want just a little movie to explain what is exactly why we did a seismic campaign. So year after year, during a million of years, you saw it was change of underground. And you have some aquifer recovered by some parts. Some are porous, some are not completely non-porous. And you mentioned that we have some, due to the heat coming from the magma, you have development of deposition of salt, but development of gas and oil in some parts. So for the things that we are using seismic campaign by underground for the sonar detected by the reflector on the boat. This is a seismic acquisition. And from the seismic acquisition, we provide this kind of image of the underground. And after that, with kind of image, we could detect that on this way, and this is genius, yes, because you see here, we effectively detect there is a reservoir, and we do a drill, and effectively, we have the results. So this is a small movie for that. This kind of campaign could have some conventional, but now we are using more this kind of acquisitions. That means a complete overview of acquisition, but this campaign is roughly 6 months. The duration of the campaign is roughly 6 months. The cost is roughly more than $100 billion, and the data observed by SNORT is roughly 500 terabytes. So we have after to exploit this kind of research, but it's very interesting because this is the cost for 200 square kilometers. And some parts are roughly, we will present activity for more than 10,000 square kilometers. So the number of receptors after the boat is 50,000 receptors. So that means we have a lot of redundancy of the acquisition in the underground. Sorry. So this is the result of the acquisition, and you will see this block is roughly 12,000 square kilometers, and this block representing the West Africa coast. That means Angola and Nigeria. This is the blocks for that. After that, so we could recover, and because you are really involved in linear algebra, so we change this block in terms of matrix. And these matrices are very large, but very sparse. This is one row, for example. And if you are dedicated to one row, we have one row and one right-hand side. So that means at the end, we could have 50,000 right-hand sides. So it's roughly difficult to use a solver for that, but by blocks, it's possible to do. But you have to keep in mind that the right sides are not independent. They are regarding the same object of the underground. So there is a lot of redundancy. That means the optimization we could use in the solver should be very robust, because we could observe a lot of possible applications due to the redundancy, but there is only one real representation of the underground. So we try to do to observe the right things. And because it's very difficult and complex, I just want to mention that in the 90s, we are using only a Cray vectoring machine. And the success of the seismics represented by the when we drill a well, if the well is corresponding to our hope, we could win. So in the 90s, the success rate was roughly 30%. That means we have only skipped the right wells, as you mentioned in the movie, only 1/3, due to HPC. Not only for HPC, but by increasing the numerical part, increasing the physical, and everything. Thanks to HPC, now the success is 85%. For the same reservoir simulation, for the same porous media, we go from 30 to 85% of success. So that means you understand that why the optimization is something very important for detecting where are located the reservoir. So for that, at the beginning, we have some algorithm we call the Kirchhoff migration, but we changed to reverse time migration. I don't want to go in detail in the algorithm, but you have to say that we need effectively to transform the data, because we have data of representing the underground, but in time for one wave. We have to transform this data acquisition, the wave, in terms of structure, in terms of space. We have to change to, as you mentioned, migrate time to space. This is the objective of the main code using in the depth imaging and seismic equations. First is we have to change time to space. For that, we need a different algorithm, and one is very well known, the RTM. And RTM is a finite difference. It's a very simple, in terms of numericals, it's very simple, but the complexity is due to the redundancy. And the algorithm is very simple. We estimate a model of the velocity of the sound, and after that, we do a simulation we represent by simulation the source of the frequency. And the other way, because we represent by simulation the response of the transponder. And we correspond source and the response of the transponder. And effectively, we could superpose by cross correlation all the snapshots. So that means this is the objective is, wow. The objective is coming from one to detect the same object representation, which effectively is corrected to all the data in all these correlations. So the 200 terabytes using should effectively go in this model, and the objective is to optimize the model of the velocity and to optimize the space repartition of the underground to correspond to this activity coming from source to the responder. So I skip, okay, sorry, no. Of course, we want to solve the wave equation for that. And because it's a very complicated wave equation, first is to our simplification by Helmholtz equation, and after we will see how is it possible to change the physical modeling. But we are using effectively a massively parallel system, even GPUs, and we have effectively, you see there, it's possible to detect, at first at all, to go in a frequency domain, use time and frequency domain, and we could use effectively one loop of the frequency over one frequency, second with another frequency. This is a loop over the Z, that means the depth of the system, and we do effectively some decomposition domain. So we have an increasing hierarchical algorithm using effectively a lot of the possibility of a lot of processor or cores. This application, due to the fact there is only one source and one responder, we could effectively use massively parallel, and the seismic data is very massively parallel systems. So that's the reason why we are using a very large HPC for seismic and not for the other type of equations. So I will skip the new algorithm, which is called now the full wave inversion. Full wave inversion shows that in real-time migration, reverse time migration, sorry, should effectively have a local optimization. Full wave inversion is a global optimization with all difficulties of the uncertainties of a global optimization. So that's the reason why we have a lot of research on optimization and try to have some global optimization. This is a loop of the work for depth imaging. So we are using effectively the modeling. This is the model I present for the sound velocity. You see, I don't know if you know, the salt dome there. The salt dome is representing why there is some aquifer in the underground. Due to the magma, the salt dome increased, so that means we have aggregation of salt. But the organic materials of the aquifer stay at this level. So if we detect a salt dome, we have some chance to have some Miocene there. So that means if by seismics we detect a salt dome, we know that very close to the salt dome, we could perhaps have a reservoir of oil. So this is the real model of the So we use effectively, because it's a very large domain decomposition. So I saw that in this case, the domain decomposition is not FETI, but Schwarz-optimal transitory. And we are using numerical method for solving these equations by HPC. And this is the result. I will show you. This is a very nice picture. This picture is the real underground of the West Africa. This is roughly 10,000 square kilometers on the west coast of Africa. All the wavelets, you see wavelets, are salt domes. And you see, by the way, there, close to the salt dome here, certainly you should have a Miocene, and certainly we could detect an oil reservoir. I don't know if you see exactly, but you see some white. This is the drills. This is the wells we drill in this area. Not all, of course, but some part. And you see, for example, this one going there. We detect this salt dome, and just behind here, we should detect a reservoir modeling. And it is extraction, because you know certainly the largest production of Total is in Angola and in Nigeria. So these drills are very, very, very efficient. So I think that Pascal mentioned that yesterday. You see, for example, this salt dome is roughly several thousands meters, 3, 4, 5,000 meters. And the depth of a reservoir modeling of a reservoir of oil is roughly 10 to 100 meters. You see, the reservoir is large in terms of surface, but very, very, very tight in terms of depth. That means if your drill there is moving by the uncertainty of 10 meters, we could recover oil or not. And sometimes we have something drilled with a seismic equation. So we drill a lot of wells, and we mentioned there is no. But 10 years later, we have a new regard of the seismics, and we discover effectively a large reservoir. You know, this is only a question of uncertainties, a question of optimization of your results. So that's but now with the HPC algorithm we had, is roughly 75% in porous media. So now I just want to go just the perspective of that. You know that the future of oil is oil shale and shale gas. That means it's a non-conventional reservoir. This is a reservoir in porous media. That means a long time ago, there is some aquifer and some part of the geological part will cover this part. In this case, in a non-conventional, the oil is not mature because the oil was captured in the rocks itself, not in porous media, covered by rocks, but in the rocks itself. So that means the first at all, we have to get porous the rocks. So that we call the fracturation. And some time ago, we have hydraulic fracturation, so now we change with no hydraulic fracturation. But for the detection, it's completely different. So this is the new, you see the fail, and the oil, what we call the kerosene in this case, because it's not mature, the kerosene is in this fail there. We have to detect this kind of fails in rocks. So now, I will set this picture on the same scale. So, you understand that we need at least 1,000 powerful more computing. This is with 7 petaflop, and for this one, you need certainly 7 exaflop to detect correctly the non-conventional reservoir. So you understand why we have to go further now in terms of HPC. Because this is the future. And the difference between this and this, that means here in porous media, we have only 1 to, let's say, several tenths of wells for exploiting several square kilometers. In this case, we have a drill every 100 meters because there's no porosity. So we have to oblige, we have fracture locally, extract locally, and so on, so on, so on, so on. So this is the objective, to reduce and to increase the porosity of the rocks by understanding why and how, and to reduce the number of wells. So I just want to precise this thing there. We need to go to the exascale for that. We need to have a better physical modeling. We have better math numerical schema, explicit or implicit, or let's say, I don't know exactly. Perhaps, I don't know if seismic we have to using the parallel of time, but why not? So everything could help, could be useful. But the main approximation should be effectively, we are using not only acoustic waves, but we are going to elastic, and we solve today elastic waves, and in the future viscoelastic and poro-viscoelastic waves. And effectively, the future is that we are going to a non-conventional. That means to have a real modeling of the foothills, that means the rocks by itself, and the non-conventional reservoir. And even in seismics, effectively now, one thing is important, that we need effectively to have more robust solution. So for that, I just described some part of the activity to increase the efficiency of our algorithm, our codes. First at all, effectively, but only one slide for that here, because you are not really dedicated to task programming and system programming. So we are using effectively this approach, first at all determined by a DAG application, so a direct acidic graph, for effectively assume that every core, every process could be effectively right at the same time and with the right synchronization, and reducing a lot the synchronization. So we are using effectively the task programming modeling. And this is the activity was done in Houston, in our research center in Houston. So now we'll skip to numerical method using in seismics. Of course, you understand that RTM effectively is a finite difference schema. So we continue effectively to improve, because a lot of studies are continuing to go with this algorithm of RTM. We want to improve the isotopic and to change effectively not only Helmholtz solved Helmholtz equation by RTM, but effectively also elastic formulation. So this is a provide direct adjoint state and parameter operator. And this is a, I don't know if you are familiar with the TRL, technical research level. So technical research is a scale from 1 to 9. 9 is a technology which is very, very, very useful, completely useful in the world. And 0 is something you have to invent. So 1 is the first step of the research of developing a new process. And generally, what we call the blue sky research is between 1 to 3. After 3 to 5 is roughly what we call the R&D program in industrial, and after is development. So this application is not, finite element is not to invent, so it's something in terms of R&D. So TRL is 3 to 4. And the second part, which is much more useful today with the FWI algorithm, is to use the finite elements with a discontinuous Galerkin and hybrid discontinuous Galerkin used for acoustic elastic. And we developed some codes for that in our research center in Houston. Effectively now the TRL, because we are developing this technology from now roughly 7-8 years. So the TRL is roughly 2 to 3. It's not to invent, but it's not 2 to 3. And we have a lot of collaboration, and especially with INRIA team, with a deep depth imaging program with INRIA and the team led by Hélène Baruch. and the GIMG is a team led by Martin de Hoop in US. And effectively now we want to develop a new refinement of H and P refinement for discontinuous Galerkin and to express the agent formulation. And effectively now that's a real large application for this year and next year is the HDG developing for discretization. In terms of optimization, we want to converge, of course, and we want to have a so free gradient optimization. We try to have a global optimization without gradient. So I don't know if this could lead to something interesting, but we have some collaboration with Surfax on this point to have a randomic global optimization. Sometimes I have some trouble with this application because we know that if the matrix is very, very, very large, quite all vectors should be orthogonal. So it's difficult to have a global optimization with orthogonal vectors. So we have to solve this kind of problem and only select the some part of the vector to do that. The objective of the numerical part, and if you want to join us, no. Okay, I will say only about the seismics. If you want to join us, we have defined a very optimal solver in time and in frequency. So I will skip a lot of things, but the objective is real there, very high scalable implementations. So we work with Martin de Hoop for that, and we have effectively now an hybrid solver between hybrid time and complex frequency. The difference between the matrix you saw yesterday by Pascal in terms of flow, multi-fluid flows, the matrices are real. And in this case, in seismics, the matrices are complex. So I will take only some new development in numerical. We try now to use some meshless applications. We think that finite elements or finite volumes using in reservoir, for example, for some applications, especially for geomechanics, for something like that, could be effectively more interesting if we are looking at the multi-scale approach to use the meshless methods. So we want to develop what could the meshless methods, what we call the DEM, discrete element methods, LBM, Lattice-Boltzmann method, and SPH, particle hydrodynamics, could be useful for developing new modeling and developing scalable systems, which now in terms of meshing, something is very difficult to extract the mesh, so we want to go effectively without mesh. We have some activities here, especially with the SPH, with the MIT and the team of John Williams. We are using SPH for modeling the hydraulic fracturation. So you know certainly the HPH is very useful if you have a free surface, and very efficient if you have a free surface. In this case, we have no free surface. We have some different boundary conditions. So that means we are using effectively, I try to use this approximation for have some results of failed propagation and fracturation propagation, new fracturation and propagation of old fracts in the rocks. So what I say that now for this research that we have some numerical validation, not only numerical validation. For the moment, we have no real theoretical validation. So this is interesting. So this is a LEDA flow. That means what are the flow in the pipe? And you know that the multi-fluid flows in the pipe could be very difficult, especially when you call the slug regime. That means you have some liquid following by some gas, following by some solid state, but by packets. not mixing, but packets. That means the pump should have completely different viscosity to see. So it's very difficult to simulate. We have to go further. So, and just one word for the project we go here in terms of large sparse algebra. This is dedicated to the communication algorithm, communication avoiding algorithm, and the development of EGMRES, presented yesterday by Pascal for the reservoir modeling, and developing by Laura and Hussam. Where is Hussam? Oh, there, by Hussam. So if you want more detail about that, you could go to these guys. And just to mention, yesterday you saw the application of the EGMRES to reservoir modeling and the equations of the matrix of developing the pressure and saturation in a reservoir. But you could see here also application to the seismics. That means the application here is dedicated to the many right-hand sides. I mentioned already that we have more than thousands right sides. In this case, effectively, we think that this algorithm should reduce a lot the communication by restart and by deflation for one right hand, but for a large number, it could be much, much more useful too. So this is the objective, to decrease the number of iterations and number of global communications. So I skip to present only the results of Hussam did for the first results for seismics matrix, which is not so large, effectively, because we could run only on one processor or 4 processors, see? And now the real matrix for seismic run on the 100,000 processor. So we see that exactly presented yesterday by Pascal, we could increase the number of vector, the vector in the block, and skip from 32 to 4, for example. And you see that the results effectively could be very interesting. That for one processor, effectively, even for one processor, when we add only 4 vector, we have effectively the ratio of error of 6 minus 8. For 6 minus now at 32. So, and we think that the tolerance is 1 minus 8. With 4 processors, effectively, we observe that we are effectively at the level of the ratio of error, 1 minus, and using only 4 or 6 or 8 processors. You see, the scalability is roughly correct. So that's the first result, and we thought that even for the result presented yesterday for the matrix of reservoir modeling, we could effectively increase largely the size of this kind of matrix, and they could be very useful. So we are very excited about this project, and we will effectively, you will work on this project during this session. So reservoir modeling in 2 words only, that Pascal presented yesterday, so we skip. And I just want to mention that we work a lot with Roland Masson for the development of a new numerical schema, hybrid schema, of course, dedicated to finite volume methods. Multi-fluid, so I will skip completely. So, no. I will only present in 2 words. I don't I will not mention the equations and the results, but I just want to show you a different application only. This is a loop for producing polyethylene particles. This is a real loop. We have 3 of these kind of loops in Belgium and in US. And they produce 100 tons by hour. Okay, it's really pushy. So that the other tons, we have some liquids in particle solid polyethylene are solids, and the ratio of solids is roughly around 40% in the liquid. The liquid is organic liquid, is dodecahexane or hexane, and effectively we have to use the multi-scale approach to understand what happened exactly. Sometimes we could observe that this is normally flows, and the distribution of the particle is the flow. So we have some small particles in liquids. And sometimes this particle aggregates and provide this large aggregation. And when you observe this large aggregation, it's too late. You have to stop the production. You have to pick up everywhere. You have to close, get out, on the trash, and recover the production. That needs roughly 2 or 3 days. You lose 3 or 3 days of production. So the objective of this project is to understand how could the aggregates growth. And by a multi-scale approach, that means how 2 particles could go together, 2, 3, if there are some shocks, if they're separate or not. So we have a multi-scale approach for doing that. That means that this is type of equation, 2 particles, when they shock, they are aggregates, but with another shock, they could aggregate once more, or they could diverge. So we set everything, all the equations for finalizing, arriving to this model. And this model is the first in the world we observe for swelling, because the aggregation is called swelling in terms of polymers. Not in detail, but you are here the divergence of the hydrodynamics of the velocity. That means this is the hydrodynamic parts of the reactor. dg here is the size of the growing of one particle. BAG is the aggregation, number of aggregation of particles. So you have some particle size and you have 2 or 3 aggregation. And DAG is the explosion of 2 particles, of 2 aggregates. And you mentioned that minus, plus, and plus here. That means we should have an equilibrium between hydrodynamics to control the size of the aggregates. So for the first time in the world, we think that it's possible to control the swelling by hydrodynamics. That means we have to effectively change something in hydrodynamics, but we could control that. We could observe that mesoscale at this. So I will skip and go directly to the results because, okay, we saw that we are using a lot of linear algebra, but also not only, you see, we are using a quaternion for solving this. Okay, I will skip that. So this is the results for example, in a stirred tank, we observe effectively that the power consumption is like that, quite stable, but suddenly increase a lot. So that means that you suddenly, effectively, you are aggregates, and we are going to the large viscous blocks. Okay? That's the reality today. So we saw experimentally, we could provide experimentally. So now, if you are choosing, if it is change something or hydrodynamics, what are the results? It's the same stirred tanks. You observe that this is the time of operation, the swelling. At 100, 200, you see that we double the time of operation. That means by only double the rotation speed of the impeller, we should effectively change completely the swelling part. And this is interesting that if you are going now after that, if you are going to change once more the hydrodynamics, you could return. So that means we should effectively, that's what I explained, that we have effectively somewhere an optimization balance between the swelling and the hydrodynamics. This is for a stirring tank. And now, in the real loop, not real, it's a pilot. The pilot loop simulation, you see that the swelling appears close to the pump, and we change effectively here. Here we change effectively, we could provide one more injector of liquid. That means here we have a turbulence in the flow. It's the same flow, but we have a turbulence in the flow. And if you take a look, effectively by this flow, by going to alternative flows there, we disappear the swelling. And after that, it's reappear because we stop the reinjection. So it's very, and this is without any change of the flow. So this is very, 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 very promising. And we are using for that very different numerical approach, DEM, LBM, IBM, two-fluid flows, so a lot of things. And we are running on the GPUs also for that. And now we're able to solve this application with 1 million of particles. So I will skip material, but you will have a presentation of that this afternoon by François Xavier. And just I want to finish in 2 minutes. Quite. I will overlap for 5 minutes. This is very important for the future, and you want to think about that in your algorithm. The next future, that means you have a lot of large simulation. And in reservoir, for example, I don't know if Pascal mentioned that yesterday, but we have something called the giga model. That means for billions of cells. And 1 billion of cells run generate roughly 400 terabytes. And we need roughly 40 iterations for that. So it's impossible to store, to reread, and so on and so on. So during the simulation, you should extract the right information. You should have, during your simulation, data processing. So that's what we call the in-situ data processing. So that means some parts of your computer, some part of your processor, or a specific course dedicated to data processing. We should spend some time for that. We work for that with Julien Tierney in France and with Jackie Chen in the Sandia lab in US. And effectively, we have to extract the right feature and only to extract the right things. The complex thing is not is like that you should extract feature without knowing if this is the right feature, because the object is not completely generated. It's during the simulation. So you should extrapolate what is the future you see at each step of data processing. So that means roughly the data processing is running every 10th time of iteration. For that, we are using statistics, effectively, the mean, so a lot of things. For moment aggregation, so the volume rendering, so that means what are the observations of the surface and the qualitative visual apart. And that's the development we do with Julien Tierney. What is a topological? Is it possible to detect some topological structure in your data? The difficulty is to detect this and to reconstruct them because they are effectively on some different cores. So we should have the topological complex, but completely distributed in different cores. So that's the complexity of this activity. So just to mention that is it will be impossible in the future to separate your numerical methods to the data processing. And we stop there. We will see all the list of applications we are using for numerical simulation. And if you want to help us in one of them, you are welcome. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Philippe.